Hello and welcome to DAWNCast. I'm Dai Lee.
And I'm Kathy Ngo.
And thank you for joining us again. And today we've got Nathan Clarke, I would say a good friend of mine from Canberra, joining us to talk about cybersecurity. So just a quick introduction on Nathan. He's the APAC Security or Operations Centre Manager for Verizon, APAC SOC as they call them. So is that the right term there, Nathan?
Close enough.
Close enough. APAC SOC Manager for Verizon. So look, today I just thought I want to get you on to give us a quick peel back a discussion around cybersecurity with the whole COVID-19. There's a lot of discussion around, obviously more people are now going online, more using online for work and communication and all of that. What are some of the issues that are you kind of seeing emerging from your organisation?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Di. So there's a lot of there's a typical behaviour that comes out of the adversary groups that target people, cybercriminal groups. They will leverage anything that's very topical in the news to elicit attention from people. So they're using fear as a tool to trick people into clicking on links or opening up web pages and things like that. And we've all seen the panic buying in the stores. That's also another topic that cyber criminals will use to elicit people to click on links and go to websites and visit e-commerce sites that aren't legitimate and are just there to steal money. So it's typical behaviour of our adversaries during times where there's a lot of things going on in the news that affects everybody. So from that point of view, very typical. We saw it during the bushfires here in Australia as well.
What do these cyber criminals look like? Like when you I'm just thinking like from a marketing perspective, like you have your persona. Do you have all these faces of what's the typical profile? Where are these criminals coming from?
It varies. There are groups that are highly funded, very well resourced, and there's a lot of speculation that some of these operate like typical enterprises. There are infrastructures that you can buy. So if you're someone who wants to perform an attack against as many people as possible, but you don't necessarily have the technical skills, there are places you can go on the dark web to purchase these services, and you can purchase the services and they come with support as a package option. And they can be used by non-technical groups to attack and infect as many people as possible or trick as many people as possible to steal their money or any of their personal information. So they fit any kind of profile. They are typically funded by organised crime.
I mean, you're one of the top cybersecurity experts, I believe, and in Canberra, if not in the country, and working at Verizon there. You oversee a dedicated team of cybersecurity analysts that provide 24/7 monitoring, security monitoring, detection and response services to multiple customers. What have you been seeing an increase of in the last 3 months since we've had these COVID-19 restrictions in place?
Yeah, so we perform two services for our customers. We obviously monitor their environment and look for any evidence that they've been compromised and help them take those response actions to remediate as quickly as possible. I also have some threat intelligence experts who are monitoring what reporting and what information is out there specifically related to COVID-19. There are coalitions of threat intelligence experts that are forming groups to share information about the things that are happening out there on the internet in order to enable, companies like Verizon and specifically teams like me to help us detect things or to put detection in place so that when it happens, we see it as soon as possible. And that's always a little bit of a race condition for us. We can see it sooner, we can get response actions happening much faster, and we can protect our customers much better. One of the COVID-19 threat intelligence groups is called the Cyberthreat Coalition, who are focused specifically on COVID-19. And some of the information that they're sharing with us, since the pandemic began, has been an increase in the amount of domain registrations. And most people are familiar with what a domain is. It's just a name that you typically type in to go to a website. These domains can be used to host websites. They can also be used to just host malware, typical malware like your crypto and ransom lockers and things like that. So they can host a website, or they can be used in a text message. And we've seen up to several thousand of these domains registered every single day. And we've been following the trend, and it sort of went up for a long time over Easter, and then it sort of started to come down towards the end of April. And then there were other types of themes that were also being used for domain registration, like themes related to personal protective equipment and those items that are in high demand during a pandemic. So we've been tracking those and implementing what we're seeing in that threat intelligence into our detection system, so that if any of those domains start to become active in our customers' environment, we can have a very close look at that communication and figure out if it's legitimate or not, and then help our customers take response actions if it's not legitimate traffic.
But domains could just be that a new business. Obviously, COVID-19, lots of businesses are setting up to do business online. So could it be a legitimate business opportunity?
Yeah, how do you know if it's legitimate or not?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And do you actually have a role in trying to shut these businesses down, or like where's the handover kind of process?
Well, we're a multi-tenanted service for our customers. What we try to do is help them take those steps that they need to protect themselves. And my team's specialization is in monitoring, analysis, detection, and determination. So we go to the nth degree to make sure that what we're seeing is either legitimate or not legitimate, and then help our customers take the appropriate actions. So we have some of our customers will allow us to share information back into threat intelligence feeds. So Verizon has a very mature threat intelligence system, which we can put information back into that system to then help others. So we try to do everything we can to not only support our customers, but get that information out there so that other people can help themselves.
So outside of the domain registrations or domain names, you've seen an increase. What other things are you seeing in terms of as a threat or security that people should be aware of?
There are. It's not specifically cybersecurity, but and we've all seen the social media and how the social media can be a microcosm of opinions. There are a lot of COVID-related groups and groups that have other interests, like anti-vaxxers and state-based groups who are using influence campaigns in social media to further their own national interests. Now, sometimes that does include cybersecurity activities, and other times it's purely about trying to sway public opinion. But it does fuel the general fear and does increase the likelihood that people are going to infect their own systems with malware or some other type of attack from any source. It just feeds that fire of opinion and narrative and general fear that is fertile ground for people to get themselves infected or have these campaigns leveraged against their organizations and things like that.
Can you give an example of the sort of campaign that you're talking about on social media that could touch upon what you just described as a influential operations?
Yes, I mean we saw the protests in Melbourne in the last couple of days, and those sorts of protests are happening all around the world that are largely being pushed by anti-vaccination groups. They'll use and leverage types of or issues that are out in the public sphere to further their own aims. And again, it just feeds that overall narrative and increases that to and fro on social media that increases the risk for things like cyber attacks and things like that. So, states, as in countries that are well resourced, can conduct cyber influence campaigns as well in social media. And they can use, where they're very well resourced, they can use cybersecurity along with social influence to further their aims. And we certainly saw a lot of that, in the 2016 US elections and beyond that as well. So cyber influence is very interesting, I guess, social media supported campaigns. And a lot of those have cybersecurity related activities associated with them.
What do you mean by that? Like, are they doing something dodgy? Because it kind of sounds like so they're potentially doing something dodgy in the back end. Fun. Funny. But
I mean, it's look, I guess it's a new type of state warfare, I guess. I mean, it's not kinetic, it's not a Cold War. It's it's an ability to influence outcomes in a country just by targeting the population. It's really fascinating. I obviously focus specifically on the cybersecurity dimensions of that, where we have organizations that allow social media to come through their network, so come through their firewall if they're not blocking that sort of stuff. That's another vector of attack that we have to try to monitor. We also have threat intelligence that's focused on social media and narrative as well. So we use services that can give us an understanding of what narratives are out there and where narratives might be shifting. And some of these things are can come to us in almost real time. Other types of threat intelligence take a long time to develop, and by the time we really understand it, the campaign has passed somewhat. But it does help us understand the source of these types of attacks so that we can anticipate what techniques that they'll use in the future, and again, help us see them sooner and respond quicker.
It's really difficult. I'm just listening. I'm thinking social media is a form of communication. It's a form of engagement, with different people, different countries. And I think the internet has really connected us more or less. But then from a cybersecurity perspective, are you saying that all of this engagement of social media is from the prism of cybersecurity that you look through them as potential threat for national threat or national security issues? Like when is social media just social media as in terms?
Yeah, like for example, if I'm scrolling on Facebook right now, like where can they be a risk? So maybe perhaps if there's like a domain that someone's purchased and it's not a legitimate shop, that could be one avenue, hey?
Yeah, it could, yeah. I mean, Facebook and most of the social media platforms are very active in trying to not only deal with fake news, but also deal with things like malicious links and, links to other services that also host links to things like malware and stuff like that. And it's a very difficult job. A lot of the, I guess, the mode of operation of the cyber criminals is to try to get as much of those links out there into the public to get as many clicks as possible before it gets shut down, or we use the term sinkhole for websites that are for websites and domains that are malicious and known to be malicious. So they rely on trying to get as much out there as quickly as possible before it gets turned off. So that's it all happens very quickly on those the campaigns that are focused on cyber criminal activity, whereas your state-based and espionage-based activity is very slow and very deliberate and very targeted and well-resourced and highly technical and complex. And that varies between different actors, but they are typically a little bit more deliberate and a little bit more competent.
So what are the challenges now for cybersecurity specialists like yourself? What to look out for, especially now that COVID-19 has really shifted a lot of businesses to go online. So what will be the challenge for you? Because, what's legitimate, what's not legitimate, and how much of your energy is going to be scanning information, scanning your domain name, scanning social media. My God,
That's a lot of work.
that's
I'm
a lot of
already
work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And we certainly prioritize what we can look at, where we think will be most effective. What we saw during the early days of the pandemic, when stay-at-home orders were, starting to be promulgated. And I mean, Verizon, I'm working from home and, Verizon were very quick to protect its staff and get us home. But we're a telco and we have the ability to work remotely if and when we need it. A lot of organizations didn't have that and had to stand up infrastructure very quickly to support remote working. And as a consequence, sometimes that infrastructure was put into place not a very well planned or secure way. And as a consequence, our adversaries are actively scanning for things like remote desktop and stuff that's been exposed on the edge of these companies' networks in an insecure way, so that they can compromise them. Where before all the stay-at-home stuff happened, that infrastructure wouldn't have been available for the adversary to compromise. So we're certainly seeing a lot of that. We provide a something of an advisory service as well. So if you're going to implement this remote desktop protocol, here are some great ways of doing it to secure it as possible, and here are the authentication methods that you should employ, and those are certainly consistent with advice such as the advice that comes from the ACSC here in Australia.
You talk about community malware. Is that right?
Commodity malware.
Commodity malware. What's the commodity malware? What is it?
That's your cyber criminal malware. That's your crypto lockers and those sorts of things to ransomware your computer. So, and they typically don't change much in these types of campaigns, as in they don't adopt the theme so much. The theme is used to elicit a click and to get that user to download or execute that crypto or that ransomware. And so that's you certainly see a lot of that during these themes of high important and that are quite prolific in the news. A pandemic is just a perfect condition to work in if you're in the field of compromising people to steal their money. So
are we expecting is there anything that we should expect more to come in terms of COVID-19, in terms of security threat or online, threat that people should be wary of now as we're moving? Obviously, this is the new world order, isn't it, to work online and to more and more. So
what are we going to see in the next couple of months?
12 months, year to come.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, but I think when it comes to attacks that adopt a theme that is popular in social media and news is, as you see the narrative shift from one phase of dealing with the pandemic to another, you'll see a slight shift in, the types and themes that cyber criminals will use. And we've already seen that with a move from COVID-related domains to, personal protective equipment themed domains. And as things continue to roll down the road in terms of the pandemic, I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion in media and social media and professional media around reopening of states. So the theme may shift towards economic themes. It may shift towards return to work themes or return to school themes. Anything that is a major change in the way that a state manages the pandemic becomes a theme that can be used in influence campaigns and in campaigns that trick people into clicking links and phishing emails and things like that.
So what's the best advice to give to ordinary folks, like people who really don't think much about cybersecurity?
Like my mum and dad.
Yeah. What advice you would give them?
Yeah, well, it's the same advice, whether it's a pandemic or not. For me, it's like, make sure your computer is kept up to date. So make sure the Windows updates are running, and make sure that you're suspect about the emails that you're receiving or the text messages that you're getting. Don't accept anything on face value if you haven't expected that communication to come in. It's really hard. Some of these scam artists and cyber criminals work very, very hard to undermine that type of thinking. It's really, do the best you can, keep your computer up to date, be wary of unsolicited communication, and do backups. keep those photos somewhere where they're not going to get ransomware.
Not going to be hacked.
Yep.
Is that right?
Print them. Old school. That's the way.
Oh God, go back to the olden days.
Scrapbooking.
Yeah. Look, thanks so much for that, Nathan. I know it's short. I'm sure we can sit here and talk more about cybersecurity, but I just wanted a little insight into what you're doing now and what people like yourself in the cybersecurity field are facing. I'm sure what you're facing now is probably different to what it was even 3 months ago.
Yeah, it is. And the challenge is, balancing what we need to do in our normal day-to-day work and then taking on the extra work of monitoring things like COVID-19 related, threats. And, my team are working extremely hard to make sure that our advice is kept up to date on a daily basis, and we're improving the detection of our systems and our customers. And, amongst all that, it's incredible. And I mean, our heart still goes out to all the healthcare workers around the world who are dealing with this. It's particularly here in Australia, it's been a stressful few months with bushfires and pandemics and things like that. So, it's a tricky balancing act, but, it really helps to have a good, not just teams and good companies like Verizon, but also coalitions that have just sprung out of the ether to, help support the monitoring, detection, and threat intelligence needed to keep ahead of this threat. So, it's interesting times for us.
So, if people want to understand more about cybersecurity in this time of COVID-19, to probably delve in further, what do you suggest? What you suggest they should do? Do you want us to send them your way? To find information, or where should we direct them to?
The ACSC and Stay Safe Online are great resources, and I've tested their notifications against my up-to-date threat intelligence, and they're generally pretty quick. Certainly subscribe to Stay Safe Online, and there are similar organizations around the world. If one wasn't enough, you could sign up to several notifications from companies that invest quite a lot in providing advice to end users. So, certainly Stay Safe Online is fantastic, and I suggest that for my friends and family. And hit me up on LinkedIn if you have any questions and want to know more about what we're doing. Great,
thank you so much, Nathan. So that was Nathan Clarke, a wonderful friend, a doting father, and a wonderful husband to a dear friend of mine, Ngan Pink Farm there in Canberra. And you're listening to DAWNCast here with myself, Dai Lee.
And I'm Kathy Ngo.
Please remember
to subscribe.
To subscribe. We're both so excited. Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Click the link below and
click like as well.
Yeah, click like.
And the bell. Click on the bell so that you can get notified on awesome content.
Yes, so thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you.
Bye.